got one jar too many. So guess what we're going to do with this jar, y'all? We're going to eat it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Kim's Cozy Corner. My name is Kim. If you've never been here before on my channel, I talk about growing my own food. So I grow all of my own food. I also preserve my food. And I also do a little bit of cooking on my videos. So everything on my channel is all about being self-sufficient in my food, preserving my food, and cooking from scratch. It's all about that healthy eating and living. Um, so today, I guess you can tell y'all, we are working on apples. Now, I don't grow enough apples yet to produce all of the apples for my family. So I go to one of the local orchards and I pick up apples. And so I've picked up a bushel of apples and we are going to process those apples today. My apple of choice is the Honey Crisp. That's my preferred apple. I don't grow Honey Crisp because I think I read that you get like a good crop every couple of years. So my preferred choice is Honey Crisp. It starts off sweet and it's got a little bit of tart in it, and I can use it pretty much for anything. I can make pies with it, applesauce, stewed apples, whatever. And it's a perfect apple. I don't need to add anything from a sweetness standpoint, and it's not too tart. So if I can't get Honeycrisp, then I will get the Fuji and I will get Gala apples and I'll mix the two together. And that's usually what I'll use if I can't get Honeycrisp. Honeycrisp apples, at least in my area, cost more than any other apple, usually quite a bit more. So I got one bushel of Honeycrisp apples, and y'all, these things are huge. Like this apple is like ridiculously huge. But this season, the local farm where I went to, everything came in early. Everything, peaches, apples, everything. So I missed the you pick option where I can go out and pick my own apples versus buying what they've already put in cases. So I had to go with what they had. But Honeycrisp is the apple today that we're going to work with. I've already had some, y'all. They're delicious. So we're going to get these washed up and then we are going to start coring and peeling and all of that kind of good stuff. I have my space all set up now to peel and core my apples. They're washed, they're ready to go, they're clean, they're perfect. And then I have a Johnny apple peeler here that we're going to use to peel and core the apples at the same time. And I've already done a few, and these apples are so big, it's not doing a good job because these apples are humongous. But we're going to keep using it, and I'll bring you in and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. After I peel and core the apples, we're going to cut them in half. And the ones I don't eat, they're going to make it into this roaster back here. And we are slowly warming the apples. And we're just slowly warming them because I'm going to separate the apples between applesauce and apple butter. So we're making applesauce and apple butter today. And so right now we're just slowly warming them. In addition to this, the only other things that we're going to need are lemon juice, and the lemon juice will help keep your apples from turning brown, and it'll raise the acidity level up so that you can water bath can. And I'm also going to use this Ball Fresh Fruit Produce Protector. I am using this because it also prevents browning as well. So, and it doesn't affect like the flavor of your food. So I like to use both. So that's it. Lemon and the browning or the stuff to keep it from browning. And that's it. I'm not adding any sugar to the applesauce. Now I will have to add sugar to the apple butter, but that's all I need at this stage. So let's get back to coring the apples. All right, I know the lighting's not going to be great until I finish coring these apples, but I will work on it as best I can. And yeah, I mean, these apples are huge. I do mean huge, huge, and they're extremely ripe. So I can't wait much longer. I'm going to have to go ahead and process these apples. I've already had them for a week, but I just attached the apple to the core, and if I get the other ones out the way here, and then I just spin it, and then there it is, y'all. It's done. That's all I need to do. It's a nice thinly cut apple. Tastes good too. I cut them in half, and there is just a little bit of skin left on here. It's not enough to bother anything. So when I blend it up, that skin will get blended up if I don't eat it. And then I put the apples over into my roaster. Now I've already cut up about half of the box, and the roaster's already half full. When you put your apples into the roaster, you have to put a little bit of water in the bottom when you turn your roaster on. That way they won't burn. They won't scorch. So I have my roaster on about 225, and once I get a full layer like this, I just sprinkle a little bit of my anti-browning ball stuff on, and that's it. Now I will every so often go over and give it a good stir to make sure that the ones on the bottom are good, the ones on the top are good. Mix it in real good. Make sure the fruit protector is on everything. But that's it. That's all we're going to do. I'll add the lemon juice later, but that's it for now. So let me get to peeling the rest of and coring the rest of these apples. The process is so easy. And I tell you, the apples, y'all, are super ripe. Ugh, that one has a bad spot. That's just how ripe these apples are. All right, I'm going to have to hand cut that one. We'll come back to that one. Yeah, I'm getting a few bad spots on these. That's why we need to manage them. We don't want to lose any of these apples. Man, that's so easy. Whew. It's called Johnny Apple Pillar. The link will be in the description below. And I used to do this by hand. I had no idea how much work I was giving myself. And again, the apples are so big, every now and then they're catching. And so I have to be careful with the catching of the apple. Yep, I'm going to have to eat that one too. Force my hand. If you're worried about the little bit of peeling, you can use a knife and get it off if you need to. Or you can eat it like I do. Let's hand cut this one here. Now, a lot of people, I've heard that a lot of people will take the apple skins and the cores and they will juice them. And so they can end up with apple juice. Now, I'm not doing that with my apples. I really should, but I'm not. I don't have a juicer. I really want one, but I am going to compost my apples. The skins, the cores, that kind of stuff. If I had waited much longer, I wouldn't have had enough apples to even cook because we've been eating on these apples now for 2 weeks. Well, week and a half. An apple a day keeps the doctor away is what they say. It also keeps the canning away. If you try to can them and everybody's eating apples, it'll keep the canning away. So over here, I just have a little sheet pan here, cookie pan, whatever you want to call it, catching all of the juice, the skins, and the cores. And now I'm going to go move these over into my indoor Vego Garden composter. So my Vego Garden composter is right here. And this is indoor composting. And usually within about 24 hours, I have compost. And so we are putting all of the cores and the peelings of the apples in here. I am actually running it on Vego mode already. I've already put the first few batches in and we're going to add to it. And that's one thing about Vego mode. If you use the Vego mode, you can keep adding to it for up to like a week or 10 days or something like that. So I just started it this morning. I used the cleaning mode this morning, got it cleaned out and cleaned up so we could do these apples. So I'm going to pause the Vego mode. I'm going to take the top off. And then I'm going to add the rest of these cores to the batch that's already running. We are wasting nothing. So I get to use it as compost versus apple juice. But either way, we are using everything. Once I put the top back on, it starts back up. It reweighs what's inside it, and it determines how much longer it needs to run based on the added materials. So Vego Garden composter. The link is below as well. With all of my Vego Garden products and all the other products that I really enjoy using. But they're in there. Let's finish up these apples, y'all. I have a ton of stewed apples from last year still to be used. I still have apple pie filling from last year. So that's why this year we are only doing apple butter and applesauce. All right, all of the apples are in there, and this was rounded. It was completely rounded. So I went ahead and took out about 6 pounds of potatoes, just about 6 pounds for the apple butter. This will be for the applesauce. So I went ahead and put just a little bit of lemon juice in there because the apples were browning just a little bit. This wasn't quite doing enough, so I put just a little bit of lemon juice in there as well, mixed it up. I just had so many apples they couldn't get down to the juice, so it wasn't coating very well. So we're going to let this sit to the side because this is going to be a very quick process because we're just going to let these apples get soft, and then we're going to put them in the blender and we are going to can them. But the apple butter is going to take a little longer. So let's go over and start working on that apple butter. So for the applesauce and the apple butter, I'm going to be using a recipe out of this Ball book of canning. I have 2 different books, and there are different recipes in both books. And so I read both recipes, and I'm going for the traditional apple butter, which is in this book here. It's on page 53. So on page 53, there's the recipe, and it's called sweet apple cider butter. So in here, it calls for 6 pounds of apples, and I have roughly 6 pounds of apples. And it also calls for 2 cups of apple cider. Now, I don't have apple cider, but I have apple juice. So we're going to put the apple juice in here instead of water. So in the roaster, you'll know that I put just a little bit of water in the bottom to keep it from scorching, to get that extra thick layer, to get that extra, what did they call it? I read it somewhere. Using the apple cider or the apple juice will just give it another layer of richness to the apple butter. So I got that in there. We're going to turn the stove on and we're going to soften these apples up. We're going to keep it from scorching, but we're probably going to have to cook it for about 30 minutes is what I'm thinking for now. And that's just to get them softened up before we move them to the blender. It calls for a food mill. I don't have a food mill, but I do have a Vitamix blender. And the ingredients for this particular type of apple butter are 6 pounds of apples, 2 cups of apple cider, which I'm substituting with apple juice, 3 cups of sugar, and I don't know if I'm going to put 3 cups in or not. I'm going to have to add sugar to taste. It all depends on how sweet your apples are. 1.5 teaspoons of ground cinnamon and a half teaspoon of ground cloves. That's it. That's all that's going into this traditional apple butter. But the first thing I need to do is get these apples cooking. So while this is cooking and I got the applesauce getting soft as well, that's it for now. I will bring you back when I believe the apples are soft enough for me to blend them up for the applesauce. And we'll come back to the apple butter and we'll do that last. Okay, the apple butter, since I was boiling it, it cooked a lot faster than the applesauce. But I want you to see the texture. If I can show it to you here. It's smushy apples now, basically. They've cooked down. And I mean, honestly, I probably don't even need to put them in the blender, but we're going to put them in the blender. So we're going to scoop the apples out. Now, I'm supposed to end up with 12 cups. I don't think I'm going to end up with 12 cups. I don't think I put enough apples in here, but we will see. If I end up with 8 cups, in my mind, that's close enough. And I have that applesauce or the apple juice in there, which is going to make it super sweet. So I'll get to back off of that sugar just a little bit. For a traditional applesauce, you would put water in versus the apple butter. Whoa, what am I doing? I can't do all of that. You would put water in instead of the apple cider or the apple juice. So I'm somewhere in the middle of the two because I have apple juice in here versus apple cider. But I am going for a more traditional applesauce or apple butter is what I should say. It's not going to be quite as sweet. So I am going to puree this. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't want it extra, extra smooth. We like a little chunkiness to our apple butter. I don't like it super smooth where it's like baby food. I just don't like it that way. So we are going to just pulse. I guess I need to plug it up first. We're going to just pulse it until we get it to the texture we want. I know there are a few skins in here and I need to make sure I get those skins. Okay, my phone rang and I had to answer it. All right, so let's pulse a little bit. Ah, yeah, that's just the texture I'm looking for. All right, so I'm going to finish pureeing the applesauce. The apples, not applesauce, the apple butter. I'm going to finish pureeing them. I'll bring you back and I'll show you the texture that I'm looking for. Man, that's all they needed. These apples were so ripe. Let's see if I can show you as I'm pouring it back into the pot. So it looks more like applesauce. I guess it's the best way to say. Not really puree, but more like an applesauce texture. And that's the texture we prefer. But it's going to cook for a very long time to become butter, so we still have some time left here to get it to where we need it to be. So I ended up with, how much did I end up with? I ended up with just under 12 cups, so it's not too far off. So we're close. Okay, it has a beautiful color. If I was going to stop right here, this would be applesauce for us. But this isn't where we're stopping, y'all. We're making butter. So apple butter is what we're going for. So we need to put this back on the stove. All right, we're back on the stove. So now we're going to add the other ingredients. So for these other ingredients, sugar, cinnamon, and cloves. So for the sugar though, it calls for 3 cups. Since I used 3 cups of supposedly apple cider, I didn't use apple cider, I used apple juice. So I am only going to add a couple of cups for now. I don't want it too sweet. If I used water, I would have been adding 6 cups of sugar. So I'm only adding 2 cups for now. Let's get our stove turned back on. We'll give it a taste once I get everything mixed in here. I'm adding in a half a teaspoon of cloves and a teaspoon and a half of cinnamon. So there's the half. And there's the teaspoon. All right, and we're gonna let this start cooking down. And you know your apple butter's ready. It's gonna be this deep brown color. Then you know you got butter. So there it is, all mixed up. It smells like butter already. I'm gonna be honest with you. It don't smell super sweet either. Let's give it a little taste. That's sweet enough. No more sugar. Oh, no more sugar. That's sweet. All right, so now it's just time for us to boil and cook it down, thicken it up. So where it holds shape, basically. Y'all, but it does taste good. I mean, this tastes really good. So now it's just a matter of cooking it down to hold its shape. Now, if I had put in 6 pounds of apples like I thought I had, but I'm a little short, not too bad, just a little bit short, it would have made 4 pint-sized jars. 4. So hopefully, I will get 4 jars out of this. I think it's going to be really close. It's going to be really close to 4 pint-sized jars. I may do a few half pint-sized jars so that I can give them. And for us, put it in the pint-sized jar so it'll last longer and I don't need as many jars. But there it is. We'll cook it down and we'll keep it coming. Okay, it's time for us to start working on the applesauce. We will use an applesauce recipe from this book here, and it is on page 181, and it's going to make about 6 8-ounce jars. If I started, oh, I'm looking on the wrong page. It's going to make 8 pint jars or 4 quart jars if I started with 12 pounds. Now, honestly, y'all, I don't know what I started with, so we'll just see when we get to that point. For my applesauce, I am not adding any sugar because I like kind of that sweet tart taste of the apples in my applesauce. So no sugar will be added. And I've already added maybe a half a cup of lemon juice already. And it only calls for 4 tablespoons. So I'm well over the amount of lemon juice that I need to put in here. And lemon juice is not optional. You have to put lemon juice in here. It protects the color as well as make sure the acidity level is where it needs to be. So don't skip on the lemon juice, but you can skip on the sugar. So let me show you how the apples are doing. Let's see if I turn it around just a little bit. All right, so they are nice, they're soft, and we are going to finish getting these apples to the right texture by using the Vitamix. I am not using a meal of any kind. I will use the Vitamix for this the same way that I do for my apple butter. Ooh, they are just sweet enough. I just like that little tartness, right? That natural flavor without all of that added sugar. Basically, the healthy way. So let's talk about a few other things before I start working on these apples. We are going to water bath can everything today. So the apple butter will be water bath canned, and I'm going to do that in my digital Presto canner because I can water bath can in it as well. But I cannot do quart size jars. I can do pint and smaller. So we will put the apple butter in there, and we will use my big pot. This big pot right here is my water bath canner. I'll have a link to one very similar in the description below. And so I already have this full with water, and I have the water heating up because my apples are warm. So I need warm jars, warm apples, and warm water. And so this is already heating up, making sure that it's ready to receive those hot apples as soon as I get them blended up. Okay. The first thing we need to do is get these apples out and get them blended up. And there is some water in these apples. So I will be putting a little bit of the water, or the juice, I should say, in here, but I'm not really trying to put a lot of them. I want thicker apples, so. But I will put some juice in there. Now let's head over to the Vitamix. All right, so I got my apples in here. And I didn't wash the Vitamix because all I did was blend up apples. It didn't have anything else in it but apples. Okay, a little bit of apple juice, but that's not going to hurt anything. I'm rinsing the top just a little bit because I did get some on the outside of the top, but that's it. All right, and so we're going to do the same thing we did last time. We are going to just pulse this till we get these apples to the texture that we want. So I guess, again, I need to plug it up. All right, here we go. And this is why you have to put a little bit of juice in here. Otherwise, it's too thick. A nice thick applesauce ready to go. Now, I have to jar it up. So I put my jars in the dishwasher this morning because I had to bring them from downstairs. I ran out of jars, y'all. And I had plenty downstairs, though. So we went downstairs, got some jars. We're going to jar them up. Remember, lemon juice is in here, and apples, and a little bit of water to keep them from scalding. That's it. So we're going to jar them up now. And by putting it in the Vitamix blender, y'all, all I got to do is pour. All I got to do is pour. Boy, that's thick. Last year, I put my apples, actually, that might be a little too thick, but that's what we got. Last year, I put my apples in, what did I put them in? 1.5 size jars. This year, I'm going all the way up to the quart jars because, y'all, one meal and I've already used all the apples. And so it's like I'm going through too many jars. And I'm like, I can't keep doing that. So we're going for the larger jar this year. Give me a little more storage space for the apples. All right, we need to mix up some more because that only made one jar. And it's not even all the way full. We'll need to add to it. But let's go get some more apples. So we still need to get the air bubbles out. So give it a good mix. Get the air bubbles out. Some of these got a little more than a 1/2 inch of head space. So guess what, y'all? We're going to eat that. All right. So let's give it a taste. Oh my God, y'all. This is perfect applesauce. It's the perfect texture. It's not puree. It's not too sweet. That's perfect. All right. Let's clean these jars up and get those in the pot. All right. So for for quart jars, I think it's 15 minutes. 20 minutes. 20 minutes. We will water bath can for 20 minutes. Oh, y'all, this is so good. I mean, for real, that is some good applesauce. Mott's don't have anything on me. And it's healthy. I mean, I guarantee you, I could be completely wrong, right? I don't know. Because it's all about the apples and how much sugar, natural sugars are in the apples to determine how many calories something has. But I could eat a cup of this and I'm probably barely 100 calories if I'm thinking about it. Because there's nothing in here but apples, y'all, and lemon juice. Put our lids on. All of my canning things are in the description below. My lids, the jars, everything I use, it's in the description below. And no, I do not sterilize my lids. I used to, y'all. I don't do that anymore. I mean, I'm canning them, right, so that they can be sterilized. So that's the whole point in my mind of canning, right? Is to get a safe product. Now, hopefully all of this will fit in my water bath canner. Okay, let's get them in here. Uh-oh, they're not all gonna fit. Since they're not all gonna fit, because this will only hold 7 jars, we're gonna go ahead and get these in. Go ahead and get those down in the water. Now you want the water to cover your jars by about 1 inch. I'm gonna add just a teeny little more water. And so I like to be 1 inch over my jars. Yep, we're good. We're 1 inch over the jars. We're gonna put the lid on. Now I need to bring this up to a boil. Once I have this in a rolling boil, then I start counting my 20 minutes. So first thing I gotta do is get it boiling, and then we'll count down 20 minutes. But y'all, my applesauce right here, this, I got 1 jar too many. So guess what we're gonna do with this jar, y'all? We're going to eat it. We're going to add this one to the refrigerator and we'll use it for fresh eating as the next jar of applesauce coming out. But y'all, the color, y'all, this color is beautiful. The taste is amazing. And y'all, we got applesauce. So I will bring you back as soon as these apples come to a rolling boil. And if I remember, I'll show you what a rolling boil looks like if I remember. If not, 20 minutes after the rolling boil, we'll be turning these off and taking them out. So I'll bring you back here shortly. Okay, so this is my bowl. It's actually a little faster than I want. I'm going to slow it down just a little bit. But we're going to start our timer now for 20 minutes. While I'm at it, let me show you how my apple butter is doing. It's looking good. And if we give it a stir, it's really about ready, y'all. It's about ready. See, it almost stays on the spoon there. If I was to put a little bit in the plate, if we look at it right here where I put it in the plate, it might be too close. You see, it didn't get liquidy. It stayed up, it stayed firm. So technically, this is ready and I could can it up. But for us, this is not good enough. We want our apple butter to be darker than this. So we are going to keep cooking this apple butter until it's a really just above like a chocolate brown, a real deep brown color, and then we will be ready to jar this up. But we got a ways to go. Now we're going to move over and finish that apple butter. All right, so here is our apple butter. You see how it's that chocolate brown? This is how we like our apple butter. Nice and dark. So we're going to fill our jars now. Initially, I talked about filling the jars and using my Presto digital canner. It's the next morning, y'all. I got tired. I put the apple butter in the refrigerator. I got it back out this morning and I finished it off this morning. So I don't want to dirty up another container. Since I'm not doing it at the same time, I'm going to continue to use my water bath canner that we used for the applesauce. So sorry, but we're not going to use the digital canner today. But you know your apple butter is ready when it kind of sticks to the spoon. I think I showed you that yesterday. And if you look at this paper plate right here, this is where I had the spoon sitting. You see how it's got peaks and valleys. It's nice and thick. There's no liquid running from it. That means it's ready. So we are going to fill our containers. And to fill the containers, I've decided I'm using pint-sized containers for my house so we don't have to go through so many jars. And we're going to use half-size pint containers so I can gift them to family and friends. Since there's not going to be that much, at least I don't think I'm going to get much more than this from the apples that we started with. So let's just fill the jar. I read the recipe. I only need a 1/4 inch of headspace, not a 1/2 inch, but a 1/4 inch of headspace. I usually say half inch headspace for water bath canning and an inch of headspace for pressure canning. But if you read the recipes will tell you what to do. And this recipe only calls for a 1/4 inch headspace, which honestly, I was surprised. I didn't know that. So I learned something new today because I try to follow the recipes. But look how rich that is, y'all. How deep, dark, and rich that is. So let's see if I'm going to get what I think I'm going to get out of this. I already have my water bath canner heating up in the background. My jars are already warm. The apples are hot. Actually, the apples are very hot. Now, you don't have to let your apple butter get this dark. It's not about how dark it gets. It's really about the consistency. Y'all, I couldn't have planned that out better. Look at that. Y'all, I couldn't have planned that out better. If I had tried to do this, I couldn't have. Gotta do my debubbling, not that I think there's any in there. Look how this is sticking. Look how it's sticking to the chopstick. This stuff is thick and rich. Now, I can wipe off the rims, checking for cracks and dings. That's the whole point of wiping these rims off, because if you have any food on the rims, if you have any grease on the rims, if there's a crack on the rim, you're going to have issues with that lid sealing. So that's why you always wipe off your rims. Now, if you are canning something that's kind of greasy, right? That's got some kind of grease buildup, you can use like a vinegar and water solution because that'll help cut through that grease. But I don't have that issue with apples. So we'll get our rims on. All right. These jars are going to need to process for 10 minutes after it comes to a boil. And I am going to add water till I'm at least an inch over the tops of my containers. The water is still extremely hot, so it's still great. I didn't cool it off too much. The jars are hot, the apple butter's hot, the water's still hot, but now we got to get it up to a boil. Once it starts boiling, we're going to cook it for 10 minutes. So I will bring you back when this process is done. It's just like the applesauce. So when I bring you back, I'm going to show you the final products of everything that we did with that bushel of apples. Here is the finished apple butter. It has an amazing color. It's thick, like you can see some of it sticking up in the top right there, but it's super thick. Ended up with 2 pint jars, 3 half-pint jars. Y'all, I don't know if I can give this away. This is just too nice to give away. I mean, this is looking good. But anyway, so ended up with my apple butter, ended up with 7 quart jars of applesauce, and I ended up with 1 for fresh eating. Since my canner would only hold 7 jars, I have a 1.5 size jar that I put in the refrigerator. So we're not going to can it up. We're just going to eat it up. So this is the haul for our apple canning project. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel, turn on notifications, share all of that good stuff. But that's it for the day. I'm going to keep them coming. I'm going to let you know how I preserve everything that I harvest from the garden or that I'm picking up from a local farmer. So, until next time, and I hope there will be a next time that you hang out with me, Kim, at Kim's Cozy Corner. Bye.